There are many beautiful games out there these days, but what I think many of them are lacking are the insane viewing distances that we have here in Ghost of Tsushima. This was already really good on a PlayStation version, but I have this baby cranked up to the absolute max here. And not only is Ghost of Tsushima an incredibly stunning game, but it is also just a very fun and satisfying game to play, on both controller and mouse and keyboard. Yes, Nixxes has once again proven that they are currently the best PC porting studio out there, setting an example of how well PC games can run if they are optimized. But despite all the good that comes with this port, there are two small issues I currently have. So let's get them out of the way before we go to the exciting stuff. The first small issue has to do with the camera acceleration on controller, and it cannot be turned off, as far as I'm concerned. I found mouse and keyboard to be a bit more responsive and snappier to play, and pretty much the entire gameplay here was recorded with mouse and keyboard. Granted, there are a lot of buttons to press in this game, so a gaming mouse with at least 8 buttons is definitely recommended. Now, I'm sure many won't even mind the camera acceleration on controller. Perhaps they even enjoy it, but for me it just felt a bit off, and I hope they add an option to just make the camera behave normally and more predictable, like it works in Elden Ring, for example. The second issue are these black lines that sometimes appear in specific cinematics. Not a deal breaker, and they are not very frequent either, but it definitely needs fixing. Pretty sure it's not an issue with my system, because I see others reporting that as well. For mouse and keyboard, you can rebind every single key, which is nice, and the game does recognize all of my extra mouse buttons. That made remapping the keys extremely easy, also very nice. Now, when looking at this gameplay here, it's hard to believe that this game made its first release on PlayStation 4 more than 4 years ago. And what's happening here is that they took everything from that game and perfected it for PC. Like I said earlier, the viewing distance is simply insane. I've recorded some sweet gameplay for you that will surely convey what I'm saying, although it does of course not look as good on YouTube. The general graphical quality here is just amazing, especially when you play around with the photo mode, which is by far the most extensive photo mode I've ever seen, with a lot of things you can add, like all those different particle effects, wind effects, and really so much more. What's especially handy is that you can adjust the graphics in real time, and there really seems to be the perfect balance for every PC system out there. If you have a high-end rig, then you can crank this all the way up, and it will run just fine, especially with DLSS and frame generation enabled. And if you have a lower or mid-tier PC, then it will also run well, with a bit lower settings, while still looking pretty gorgeous. There's no ray tracing or path tracing here, but let me tell you, you most likely won't miss it here at all. This game has incredible lighting and incredible sunsets. Combat with mouse and keyboard is very satisfying and responsive, but because of all the extra tools, skills and stances, it really does require a gaming mouse, so you're not completely and constantly overwhelmed with all the buttons that need your attention. It's definitely playable either way, but much more convenient on a controller. So if you don't mind the camera acceleration, then that is very much an option. I don't think I have to say much about the game itself. If you want to know a bit more, you can watch my previous Ghost of Tsushima video, but I can tell you now that I'm having a blast. The story is great and actually captivating, with a bad guy that I totally want to kill. Side quests are meaningful and not filler content, and the sheer amount of stuff to unlock that you really want to unlock just makes for a very fun experience here. Drop a like if this was useful, and I'll see you next time with hopefully another great game.